Courtney and welcome to my channel. If you haven't already checked it out, I have my June wrap-up, which some of those books will be featured, I think, might be featured on this video, where I'm mostly doing a reflection of the entire first half of the year, so the first 6 months, but the previous video was just for the month of June, so feel free to check that out. Also, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook if you want to give me a follow over there and engage in a lot more content that I post on a more regular or frequent basis rather than here on my YouTube channel, which I usually just do once a week. I cannot believe that we are halfway through the year. If you couldn't tell for the title of this video, I'm freaking out. It's the mid of the year, or mid-year. I tried to shorten it and then it just fumbled around. It's fine. And yes, I just can't believe it. We are in July, more than halfway through 2021. I feel like, I mean, I'm 31, in case you didn't know, but I feel like the older I get, time just keeps going faster and faster. But even with the pandemic this past year and a half and still ongoing, things might have felt slow or like dragged, but now that things are opening back up again and hopefully folks are feeling healthy and safe to go out again, it's just speeding up so wildly. So here we are, we're in the middle of the year, people. And yeah, it's just amazing to think about, but that's that. So as we're in the middle of the year, I did have some stats that I want to share with you. So again, I am looking at my always fully booked planner, and this just has a lot of fun pages for you to go over what you've been reading. It has a schedule or a calendar for you to do daily or monthly to-dos and things like that. And also like fun stats pages and things along that line. So let me go to my mid-year pages. All right, here we go. So some things I still need to fill out, but I have, it's like the quarterly check-in spread. But yeah, I will go over some of these and then go over these mid-year freak out book tag prompts, which I had a lot of fun doing. Currently, my current favorite author is Taylor Jenkins Reid, which Malibu Rising will be on one of my prompts for this check-in. My favorite character, and I have two, would be Lenni and Margot, which those characters will also be featured. Currently loving How I Met Your Mother, so we're rewatching that. We're currently on season 7. I've seen it one time through all the way. Not a fan of the last season. If you've seen it, I think a lot of people would agree with me, but we'll just leave it at that. The music I've listening to is the Twilight score slash soundtrack. So I read Midnight Sun last month as my reading vlog, and then my friend and I watched Twilight over again, and then that got me in the mood to listen to the soundtrack, and I just fell in love all over again because the score, they do really well for the movies and the whole film series. Food, very odd. It's a plant-based sandwich with avocado. So I've been doing the My Peak Challenge, which is a program by Sam Heughan, who plays Jamie Fraser in the Outlander series on Starz, and he has created this fantastic one-year program where he's partnered with a lot of nutritionists and like health coaches and yoga instructors, physical trainers, everything like that, to put together a like guide, both food, mental health, and exercise that you can do throughout the entire year. So I joined last month, so I guess I'm behind, but it gives me the full year anyway, so I'll have 12 months. So this time next year I should be done if I follow it or keep to it as best as possible. But one of the items that they had me make, I think last week or the week before, was this sandwich. So like super basic sandwich, but it had like vegan cheese, vegan like ham slices, and what else did it have? It had avocado, arugula, salt, pepper, tomato, and lemon juice. I think that was it, but it was so freaking delicious. Like, I'm not a big sandwich person, but I just really enjoyed it, so there's that. Favorite beverage is a pomegranate and blueberry juice from Palm, so absolutely love that brand. And then place I visited, I went to Destin, Florida for a volleyball tournament known as FUD. So they do this twice a year, and it was super fun since this was the first trip I've been on in over a year and a half, 2 years. So, and even the first flight I've been on because we flew down there. So that was pretty exciting. Anyway, other things that are not random that have to do with books. So at the point of June ending, I had read 51 books out of my goal of 100, so doing pretty well there. I've read 18,288 pages. Is there a book that's long? That is that long? I don't know. That'd be cool if I can say I've read the longest book that was 18,000 pages. I don't know if that's really a thing. Maybe the dictionary? I don't know. I read 28 print books, no ebooks. I don't know if that's ever going to change. 23 audiobooks, 1 reread, and then 4 DNFs, or did not finish. And I can't remember what those are. Some of those I think I had started and I plan to return to, so it's not completely DNF, but it's tentatively DNF, if that makes sense. I still have a hold of them. They're on my shelf, but I just didn't finish them at the time that I had started them, or like jumped into something else. So those are the stats there. So that's usually pretty fun to fill out and see where I'm at. And if you go on my story graph, which I've listed below as well, there's all these other fun graphs on there on what genres I tend to read, and then the types of pacing that I like with my books. Is it fast, slow, moderate? And yeah, there's a few other things on there too. I should link that and take a screenshot or something, because I always find that stuff kind of fascinating to see. And speaking of that, I feel like I'm still very eclectic with my reading even this year. So last year I talked with Anne Bogle with Modern Mrs. Darcy when we did a What Should I Read Next podcast episode. So I got to be a guest, which I was very honored to be on. And we talked about what my reading life was like this time last year and doing a reading checkup basically. So I talked about how eclectic my reading style is and my genres, and I feel like that's carried over as well. Like I'm all over the place as it comes to mysteries, to contemporary, to poetry, to nonfiction, to YA, like everything you can think of. I feel like I've been delving into, or I feel like I've been stretching myself more than other genres that I've tended to read in the past. So that I'm pretty excited about, but I like to see that kind of thing too, to see how diversified my reading is, and that I'm not necessarily like making a huge effort, but it's just my natural style to pick up different books, or at least where I'm at in my life right now, that I want to check out different things and explore different authors, different cultures, and ways of expressing stories. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. So as it comes to this year's prompts, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So buckle up, or if you want to fast forward or come back to this video another time, feel free to do that. All right, I'm starting off with the best book of 2021 so far. That is The 100 Years of Lenni and Margot by Marianne Cronin. And I had said when I first finished this that this was in like very, very high on the list. And I read this, I think in April or May. So there hasn't been many books after that that have like competed with it for the best book. But this one blew me away. It is about these two characters. Lenni is a 17-year-old girl in the terminal ward of a hospital, and then Margot is an 83-year-old woman in, I think, just in the aging part of life in the hospital, the same hospital as Lenni. So they meet and they figure out combined their total years equal 100 of life, and they celebrate that by painting a picture of every year that they've lived, and that's going to be a part of the new art program or like gallery in the hospital. So that I thought was pretty cool. But it's so beautiful, it's funny, it's sarcastic, it's emotional, it's about independence and skepticism and challenging one's like where one's at in life, and like not really accepting like no for an answer and setting their own paths. And you'll cry. Like it was so beautiful, like everything you could have imagined in a novel. Oh my gosh, so fantastic. And this just came out in June, so that I was very fortunate to get an ARC ahead of time. But super phenomenal story, highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. How much more do you need to be convinced? Up next we have the best sequel. So I don't have the physical books with me since I listened to them all on audio, and that would be the Selection series by Kiera. So this is a not actually post-apocalyptic, but futuristic sci-fi-ish novel about or maybe it's dystopian, about this contest where there's like this royalty and then everybody else is in like a caste system where I think a member from each caste is invited or has to try out to enter this contest to win the royals, whoever's available for marriage, basically, heart in like this competition. So there's different challenges, there's interviews, things like that. And our main character, America, is picked from her caste, and she's kind of in a difficult situation since the boy she really loves is in a lower caste than her, and that's not really allowed. And then she develops feelings for the prince when she goes through this contest and finds a lot of good friends out of the other women that are brought in. So this is like young teens, maybe mid-teens, and yeah, it's very interesting. When I first seen it, I thought it was like a Bachelor meets like the Hunger Games kind of mix, and in some ways it is, but it goes a lot deeper into that, into like power structures and government control and things like that, which I'm like, yes, like let's dive deeper into that. So technically it's a longer series, but America herself and her experience is only first 3 books. I haven't delved into the rest of the series yet, but I don't know if I want to, because I liked where she ended and like what happened there. So there is like some violence, there's I don't know, there's like adult themes with it. So that's why I kind of included the Hunger Games tie-in with it, but I was pleasantly surprised by it and just enjoyed the whole experience and like blew through them pretty quickly on audiobook. Then we have the new release I haven't read yet, and that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. And this is the same author that wrote The Silent Patient, which I really enjoyed that. I listened to it on audiobook, super creepy if you listen to it on there, and guessed how it was going to end, which I don't really do. I don't really read psychological thrillers too much, but I watch them, so I kind of had an inkling of what was going to happen, but I enjoyed the whole experience all the way through. So this follows, I believe it's a bunch of students at a university, so this is kind of dark academia, and there's a lot of students of this one professor that go missing, so they're trying to figure out what that's all about. So this also came out in June, so I'm not too far behind, but I think I want to read this, or I think I have another book over there that's also psychological thriller, murder mystery kind of thing for my August reading retreat, which I have booked. I'm very excited about it, and we'll be giving details soon of how I've planned it out and then what are the kind of things I'll be doing for it. But anyway, this might be one of the books that I read for that, but if not, I might do it in October. So that's the thing too, I'm not really big on, like, I might buy the book. I think that other people can relate to this. Buy the book when it comes out, or like get it very close to its release date and then it just sits around. I'm not the person that needs to devour it immediately, unless when I was younger, like Harry Potter and Twilight were those books for me. But as I'm getting older, I'm like realizing how many books on my shelves I haven't read yet, and like I can avoid spoilers, it's fine, and I will still have a good experience with it whenever I end up reading it. Up next is the anticipated release for the second half of 2021. So I am excited for Diana Gabaldon's 9th book in the Outlander series. Yes, I don't know much about the premise or the synopsis since I'm still reading the 8th book, Written in My Own Heart's Blood, and this is my first time reading them through. Some people I've talked to, some of my coworkers too, were like, I've read them multiple times, and I'm like, these books are so massive. So I'm like in awe that they're able to do that, and I'm still trudging along. So we'll see when I get to that. I pre-ordered it, and it is signed by Diana Gabaldon. That's my first one I have that's signed. I kind of have like a mismatched collection going on. I have a bunch of trade paperbacks. I have one that has the adaptation cover on it, and then I have a huge paperback. So I think this one might be hardback. I don't know. So eventually, when all of the books are out, I will have a full collection of those books that I like, kind of like Harry Potter, we'll flip through, but then I'll have like a nicer collection that'll be like in a chest of some kind, and they'll be my display copies or something. All right, up next is the biggest disappointment of the year. I hate to say this. So Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I absolutely loved Ready Player One. Like, I thought it was brilliant, ingenious, so different from any book I've read before. I listened to it on audiobook, and then I found a paperback copy at the Cincy Library Friends. It was a used copy, and I like I thought it was a sign. I'm like, yes, I want this book so bad. So I picked that up, and then I had won this copy from like an Instagram giveaway or competition, but I had already listened to it, or was in the process of listening to it on audiobook as well. So this, I just felt, I don't know, there was so much hype from the first one. I think I let my expectations be super high for the sequel. I think it has interesting elements, like it brings in more of the game, which is cool, and a lot of references, but I think that it was just too much of a stretch, or I think some of the plot points were kind of cliche and too on the nose from what happened in the first one. So that's probably the biggest thing for this. Like, I think it was an okay story and like cool to jump back into that world, but it was just too predictable in my mind, or like too like, oh, of course that happened. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it, but yeah, it's a shame though. The cover's pretty amazing too. It's very beautiful and pleasant to look at, in some of my favorite colors, but I just, I feel so bad. I hate calling books disappointing or like ranking them low, but I just had to on this one. Up next is the biggest surprise. That would be The First 10 Years, Two Sides of the Same Love Story by Meg Bashwiner and Joseph Fink. So this was so funny. Like, I probably should have known it was going to be funny because of the squirrels and a boat on the cover. But, I mean, I love love stories. I love romance. I love learning about people's relationships developing. But this just took on a whole new meaning of what it means for me, I guess, to be in love and to, like, have your best friend as your soulmate and all that kind of stuff. So this goes over, it alternates. So it's literally 10 years. So I think it starts in what, 2010? Yeah, 2010. And then the first chapter in 2010 is, I think, either, it might be Joseph's chapter, and he talks about what that year was like for him. And then Meg takes the second chapter, and it keeps going like that for 10 years or 10 chapters. And it's so cool to get their perspectives. Like, I think that's what makes it so genius and so surprising is, I guess I knew people would experience something differently just based off their perspective on their experiences growing up and like their mindset and personality and everything. But this I just thought was so fun and just so interesting to see how they interpreted different events or the same events differently. But yeah, so this is a nonfiction, it's a memoir, and I absolutely loved it. Up next is my favorite new author. That would be Morgan Rhodes, the author of the Fallen Kingdoms series. So this came as a surprise kind of to me as well. So this I first learned about on Beth at Books Nest YouTube channel, where she had gotten like the whole series or was slowly building up the series, and she described it as a Game of Thrones-y story but for young adult. But don't let that like diminish how like still violent and like intricate and absorbing the world building is, because it's all still there, and a lot of like deception, stabbing people in the back, all that kind of stuff. And it has like 3 different like kingdoms, or in all within this one land, that have different complicated relationships amongst them. So this is the first, I think there's like 6 or 7 books in the series, and I put the other ones on my wish list for maybe not the rest of this year, but in the future I will continue to read the series. But I thought it was really interesting and very engaging, and I kind of like forgot as I was reading it that it was a young adult book, and that's what I think was so great about it, that it's good for a lot of audiences. And yeah, I'm delving more into sci-fi and fantasy. This was a good way to get into that. All right, next is newest Fictional Crush. So this, I don't know if I have really a strong answer on this one, but I did come up with characters that I thought were just really cool. So I put the Riva children from Malibu Rising. So all 4 of them, Kit, Hud, Nina, and Jay. I couldn't even remember all their names. So I listened to this on audiobook, and I just loved their story. Like, very complicated, dark, deep, emotional, but each of them, I guess, combined, or each of them individually had their own like strengths and like challenges, or not necessarily weaknesses, but flaws, I guess. And then together as like a group of children or as like a family were just unstoppable, just super close, super cool, and just love their personalities and enjoyed every one of their stories throughout the whole book, and love where they all ended up in the end, because it got kind of dicey with some of their relationships with each other and like just things going awry and what they tended to be in like the order of their birth and like the responsibilities they took on with all of their parent issues. So yeah, that might be a cop-out answer, but they're amazing people. So next is favorite new characters in general, and I'm going back to Lenni and Margot. Just their relationship is so cool. Like the youth, the adulthood, the just like understanding each other and having kind of like a mother-daughter relationship going on. I just thought it was beautiful. And Lenni, I think, is just so sarcastic. Margot is too. I just think she's more reserved, or she had a lot of that in her youth, and she just had a lot more experience nowadays. But she has like funny moments in the hospital where like Lenni like observes and she can't believe what she's seeing, honestly. And then Lenni, I just love how she challenges authority, challenges religion. I just appreciate that about her, because she knows she's dying. She's not really in denial, but she's trying to like poke holes or poke ways into like other things that she can get control of. So that I admire about her. All right, a book that made you cry. So I have two. The first one is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. So I know this was a TV series. I read the book first, cried at both if you need to know like how emotional this book is. But it's both the series and the book is about these two women that grew up together on Firefly Lane in their young teens all the way through their 30s, I think 40s-ish. And they like have been through so much together. They're best friends, they fight, they celebrate a lot of things together, life, loss, love, all of that, but just things they've gone through. Like they are completely opposite, which is also amazing. I love that kind of relationship in friendship and in romantic relationships as well. But it's just amazing what they've gone through and like how comfortable they are, like challenging each other, talking with each other about difficult things, and they're just there for each other for years and years on end. So yeah. And then the second book is Romanov, and this, I listened to the audiobook. I didn't know the story of like the Romanov family. Like I knew it was true. The book Romanov is more like sci-fi mystical fantasy, just based off like the interpretation of it. But yikes, like the ending of that family, holy smokes, that made me cry. About like a whole family basically being executed is just yikes. Like anybody getting executed is crazy, but the whole family is super sad. Like, and they like the parents and the children of varying ages. Yikes. Like I don't know what else to say besides yikes. But yeah, I think I enjoyed it because it gave a lot of historical context, even though it did have like some mystical elements to it. But I enjoyed learning about the family and like their relationships and kind of how it all culminated to that moment. But yeah, super sad. On the other hand, if you want a book that makes you happy, try Half-Life by Gillian Cantor. So there are, before I talk about the happy moments, there are moments of some pain and some loss. But the reason it makes me happy is this is a retelling of Marie Curie if she didn't follow her path into science and she followed love instead. And what makes me happy is she didn't eat both paths. She actually got both. I don't think that's really a spoiler, because it like talks about how she still enjoyed science and like learning even in this like fictional alternative world of going with love instead of science. So that I think made me happy, that we can do both, or we don't have to pick one or the other. Like yes, it'll lead us in different directions which one we initially give more priority to, but it doesn't mean we won't get the other thing, or the other, like one or the other won't make us happy or will make us happier than the other thing. So that I really enjoyed, and I didn't really know too much about Marie Curie to begin with. I loved learning because it goes through both experiences of her choosing the path of science, and then it alternates with her choosing love. So I love seeing the like how it aligns and like goes throughout time and where she would be in either instance. So that I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, it, like, don't get me wrong, it does have sad moments of loss in there, but there's also moments of happiness and just cheering her on and her experience as a woman in Europe, just going through a lot of hardship at that time in Europe. But she made a name for herself, and I thought that was pretty cool. All right, the most beautiful book that you've added to your collection. That is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I still don't know really what this book is about, but just look how pretty it is. I can look at, let's see, I'll read this to you because I still don't understand. The House of Berethnet has ruled Ernest for 1,000 years. Still unwed, Queen Subran IX must conceive a daughter to protect her realm from destruction, but assassins are getting closer to her door. Ede Durian is an outsider at court. Though she has risen to the position of lady-in-waiting, she is loyal to a hidden society of mages. Ede keeps a watchful eye on Sabrin, secretly protecting her with forbidden magic. Across the dark sea, Tanya has trained to be a dragon rider since she was a child, but is forced to make a choice that could see her life unravel. Meanwhile, the divided East and West refuse to parley, and forces of chaos are rising from their sleep. Okay, so I will say there's a lot of words and pronunciations I know I did not get right there. I'm hoping that I can find some videos of the correct pronunciations and understand kind of where each of these characters fall, because I feel like with a book this large there's going to be a lot happening, a lot of world building and names being thrown out that I won't understand right away, so I'll need to take notes or have some kind of guide. But beyond that, I'm like, I just also, big paperback books are also beautiful to me. So even, I mean, like, this cover sells it for sure, but even more that sells it is the thickness of a book. I say this as I'm still struggling to finish one of the biggest books I own, which is Written in My Own Heart's Blood, but we'll just leave that at that. And then finally, books I want to read before the end of 2021. So I have two on this as well. One is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So I had read Shadow and Bone, I think that was in April, and I saw the series. I wasn't too in love with the Shadow and Bone part of the Grisha verse, but I love the Six of Crows, or the Crows, especially in the TV series on Netflix. So that I'm very interested to see more of their stories. I don't know, I resonated more with them and loves like their characters and like their abilities and things like that. So I'm excited for that. Is anybody surprised here? I still want to finish this book. I'm getting a lot closer. Look, I'm on page 500 something, 521. I'm almost done. I am going to finish this. I have to finish this before November, since that is when the 9th book of the Outlander series comes out. It just has to happen. I'm listening to it on audiobook and then alternating with the physical book as well. At first, the first half of the book was just reading the print book, but like, as anybody who's read this series knows, the font is super small, the margins are tiny, the pages are like flimsy, so like super thin. It's been taking me a while, since last November. Ay. But yes, that is my goal, to finish that before the end of 2021. You should all place bets, honestly. Like, yeah, I'm not into gambling or anything, but this could be more for fun. But I don't know. I mean, I want to bet on myself, but I just don't know. It's been taking me so long. We'll see. Anyway, that is the end of my mid-year freak out book tag. Feel free to be tagged. You can tag whoever you want. I don't know who originated this tag. I'll try to do that and leave some links in the description to let you know where you can find other people who have done it or where I've seen it before. I'll also leave the podcast episode that Anne and I did on what should I read next in the description below, and then other things that I mentioned throughout this video I'll put down there. I know Storygraph was one of them. There might be some book reviews. I don't remember what I referenced. I'll have to watch this back when I edit it and remember what I said I would put in the description. But if I'm missing something, feel free to comment and let me know. But yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts were about these books, about the prompts, what you would have chosen for the first half of the year to fit these prompts, what you've enjoyed this past 6 months of 2021 and let me know in the comments. But yes, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to hit subscribe, hit the notification bell to know when I post videos next. Like I said, it's usually once a week. Next week, if it's to stay on track, I will be reading The Hobbit for the reading vlog for the month of July, and that will be up hopefully next week. I'm starting it. Today is Friday when I'm filming this. This is right after work, and I will be starting The Hobbit as soon as I get off the video with you. So I think that's pretty much it. I hope you have a great day and happy reading.